Hi, everybody. We're live. Sorry, John distracted me with a message.
Off the rails.
We're just you can't be off the rails if you never started on the rails.
Okay, that's true.
Welcome everybody to Ramblemancy. I'm very excited for tonight because tonight we are joined by Omar Najam. Omar, welcome. Good to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Um, Before we get started, we have of course, also welcome back, John. Um,
That's me.
John coming to us from an entirely new background. Uh,
Actually, the weeks that I was gone, I was actually just building this background from
There you go.
scratch. It took
Yep.
me a very long time. I am a
Ooh.
terrible carpenter.
Well, it
I'm
looks
just
good.
kidding. I moved 400 miles.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I built the background.
And then he built the background. Yeah. So yeah. Well, welcome back, John, and welcome, Omar. Tonight we're going to be talking about our media favorites, things that we love in media, as well as what kinds of things we like and what we connect with specifically in media. But before we get into that, I'll just go ahead and get through our, excuse me, top of stream announcements, which is, of course, our week's programming. So this week we will be back on Tuesday with Into Deep, our Waterdeep Dragon Heist actual play with an all LGBTQ plus cast. They're wonderful and chaotic and truly just an incredibly charismatic group of individuals, and I'm very excited to see what they do next because I never know. They always surprise me. So it's been very fun to kind of be in the audience for that one and watch. So I highly recommend it. Of course, on Wednesday we'll be back with Infinite Horizon, the most recent episode of which went up on YouTube today, so you can check that out on YouTube if you have missed it. And then Friday we will be back with this show, Ramblemancy, where we will have a TBD topic. We will announce it as the week goes on. But yeah, I think that is pretty much everything. I do believe that we have the next episode of Into Deep will be up on YouTube tomorrow. Saturdays being the day that has that's kind of worked for us, so we're gonna stick with that. And yeah, I think that's pretty much everything to start off with. Normally this is where I would throw John under the bus, but I have a question to start us off with since we're getting into our topic now. So I was thinking about, in terms of like our media favorites, a good place to start is like generally speaking, like what kinds of media do we connect with? Chat, feel free to answer this question as well. But like in broad terms, like what is the kind of media that you personally tend to connect with the most?
Wow, a part of me wants to go philosophical on this a little bit.
Go wherever you want to go with it.
Do it.
I am the biggest small convention person. I was gonna say like small convention rat because like a mall rat, but like for
Right.
like for tiny conventions.
Well, I have mall
And-
kids somewhere like
yeah,
reach.
exactly. That would actually be a great little skin on that game. But I
Ooh,
I
yeah.
love stuff that you just kind of stumble upon, if that makes sense. There's a lot of like really popular content shows, like music, movies. But every so often you'll just go and someone's like, I'm just selling this like old DVD from the 90s. It's a monster movie, $2. And you're like, yeah, I'll go for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you buy it and you watch it and you're like, that was the greatest movie I've ever seen in my entire life. So to me, it's that kind of like just like the like hidden gems, if that makes sense. Like something that you just like pick up or is recommended to you and you're like, that was what a surprise.
Yeah.
I think that kind of stuff is just like a really great experience, where it's kind of like off the beaten track a little bit. Or you find out that like for me, it was like My Neighbor Totoro. I was like, what a great unknown movie. And then I went to school and everyone's like, my dude. It's a very popular film. It's a very, very popular.
Here's the thing though, like I am 28 and I just was introduced to Ghibli like within like Studio Ghibli movies within this last year, and it's been such a magical experience. Like this time last year I started like working my way through all of those Ghibli classics, starting with like I think I started with My Neighbor Totoro, and then Kiki's Delivery Service, and then a couple of
Yes.
other ones, and I just watched Spirited Away this last week. But like they're so incredible. Like there's something, and I think maybe this can be a partial answer to the question, I suppose, but like I love media that speaks, that like takes everyday experiences and then recontextualizes them just a little bit, because Ghibli is so good at that. Like there are so many parts. I wouldn't say that there is ever like a wasted part of the Ghibli films that I have seen, because they take, even though they're like full of shots of just like the family riding in a car or like these very everyday things, but like none of it's wasted, because they take that and turn it into something extraordinary. And I love that. I love that.
Just the
Like all
process
the
of
food.
plants growing. Yeah, all
Yeah.
the food.
Yeah,
You're seeing
all the food.
cucumbers in a river. I'm just like, can
Yeah.
I get some of that, please?
Yeah.
Few things make me as hungry as food in Studio Ghibli films.
It's true. Like the whole Howl's Moving Castle with the bacon, the whole like scene with the bacon, cooking the bacon with the egg and calcifer.
Oh.
I mean, it's got a lot of grease, but it looks so good.
I have never I've never received a higher compliment about any food that I've ever cooked from you, Lucas, than the time that you roasted me to Caitlin by saying John sent me pictures of his dinner and it looked straight out of an anime.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
You'll have to. I need to see that.
Yeah. Speaking of Caitlin says Spirited Away was banned in our house because we watched it too much, and my mom didn't like to hear Chihiro yelling.
Oh
no.
Poor kids just having a bad time for so much.
Yeah.
We, off of that really quickly, this won't go anywhere, but I'm just going to share. I don't think I've ever said this on like a public forum. But at one point, my mom, my siblings, and I watched Toy Story every day. After school for like a month, and then at one point my mom was just like, I'm hiding this. And I'm not sure why. If I'm being quite honest, it wasn't like we were like doing anything wrong, but at one point she was like, this is too much. And just like, and then we didn't see Toy Story for years. And so we were just like, as adults, we were just like, I don't want to watch Toy Story tonight. Don't text mom. Like I'm in my 30s, but I think I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna rip off the Band-Aid.
I love that. I think I might be a little wild tonight and watch Toy Story.
Yeah. It's Friday night. I might the folks are asleep in their own house.
Just get a little crazy and put on some Toy Story.
So for me it was Aristocats.
Yeah.
And for my brother it was one of the Rescue Heroes movies.
Oh, great. Yep.
Rescue Heroes.
I can still like picture the world weary sigh of one or both of my parents when I was a little kid and said, I want to watch Star Wars again. So like I for me it was that one.
That tracks.
Yeah. Or Muppet Treasure Island.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, Muppet Treasure Island. A masterpiece of a film, if ever there was
Yes.
one.
Yes.
Also, the first film I ever saw in theaters.
What a great way to kick it
cool.
off.
Yeah, absolutely. Really set the bar way too high going forward.
Oh man, I don't even remember what I first watched in theaters. I'm trying to think.
I do.
Yeah.
I'd have to ask my parents, honestly.
They did not take me into the movie theater before my memory could be activated. I was a terror.
Yeah. You know what? I believe that.
I think I've said it on the show before. I think it might have been Mulan.
I think I remember you saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Mulan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're all setting the bar so high for cinema with your first experiences.
I know this wasn't my first one, but I do remember it as being like somewhere among the ones that I very strongly identified with. But I almost said the wrong a video game title, but that's very different. But Treasure Planet is one of the ones that I remember from seeing like early on.
Yeah.
God, I love that show so
And
much.
Martin Short as the little blob.
Yes. Oh my God.
So good.
Morph.
Yeah, we oh damn it. Okay, never mind. I was gonna say something, but I realized that our spoiler ban for Infinite Horizon isn't passed yet, so
Right.
Shucks.
but let us just say that a non-zero part of the most recent episode of Infinite Horizon took some inspiration from Treasure Planet. So
Yeah. Yeah. I'll just
Mhm.
say that during Writer's Room, Lucas and I were working on some of the NPCs, and I was like, we're just writing an homage, like a love letter to Treasure Planet now, aren't we? He's like, I think we have to.
let's just lean into it. Um, but yeah, no. Oh, Nico, first of all, hello, Nico, and thank you so much. 18 months of
Oh,
subscription. My dude,
That's so many
that's
months.
so
Oh my
many months.
gosh.
That's incredible. Welcome,
whoa.
welcome out to our. That's not true. John was our oldest mod. Our oldest non-staff mod.
Yeah. I work here. It doesn't count.
Yeah. Yeah. um yeah, okay. I want to go to chat cuz I saw some good stuff here. Gemini Lightning said the kind of media that he likes to that he connects with is character driven. If a character doesn't grab me, I lose attention very quickly.
Mhm.
I absolutely agree with you. It takes very little for me, like with a TV show or something like that, especially if I'm skeptical going in. It takes very little for me to actually like achieve a state of buy-in. But like one of the quickest ways to do it is if there's a character. One, that's all it takes is one character that just will like grab me. And that could be any number of things that about that character that will grab me. But like that is easily the best way to get me hooked on a show. Like, yeah.
It's one of the things that I adore about Patrick Rothfuss's The Slow Regard of Silent Things. It is about this deeply fascinating, super interesting, very weird character, and they are the only character apart from inanimate objects. And I will also say that somehow he managed to make a character-driven story that was about a person and a bunch of inanimate objects, and I
Huh.
was more attached to those inanimate objects than I have ever been to characters in some other series.
Wow. Wow.
So anyway, that short aside to just say, read The Slow Regard of Silent Things. It's very good. It's also very short. It's only like 100 pages.
Yeah, I keep meaning to pick it up, but man, you know how it's been so much harder for me to read lately, to like actually not just in terms of time, but also I feel like I talk about this on this show all the time, where it's like when it comes to reading, what happens to me is that I'll sit down, I'll start reading, and then my brain starts going. I start having all these
Mhm.
creative ideas, and I'm like, I need to do something with this creative energy, and then I'm no longer focusing on the reading, and it makes it almost impossible to read.
Let me. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, read. I have this. That's the same thing with reading happens to me. It's like
Yeah.
with that, and also it's like I'll have a remind. It'll remind me like, oh wait, I have this other thing I need to do. Like, oh wait a minute. But that's kind of where I'm
Yeah.
at too. Yeah.
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Omar?
Yeah.
I was just gonna ask, like, I feel like sometimes when I'm reading or ingesting some media, I'll be like, this is a pretty good idea for a character to play, and then I just get very distracted of just like, oh, should I bust out a notebook? No, stop. You're not GMing. It's okay. And then you rest,
Mhm.
and then you get a few more pages, and you're like, no, I.
I really gotta, though.
I
Yeah, I really gotta
100%
jump
blame TTRPGs for this. Like 100%. Because
I
then I'm just
read
like, ooh, that's a good idea. I better write that down. And of course, I never write it down, but I am also not concentrating on the book either. So,
I read Gideon the Ninth, and then I started playing in Remy's like home
yeah,
D&D
yeah.
game, and now I'm just playing Harrowhark and Gideon smashed together as a fucking rogue from one of the classes in Tasha's.
Yeah, there you go.
I
I mean,
just took them and smashed them together, and now I have a TTRPG character
and
that I adore very
it's
much.
so much worse when I read specifically for inspiration too, right? When I'm reading just to get inspiration, because then I'm already primed to be distracted by that, and it's
Right.
just it makes it so much harder.
Yeah.
I have a book. See, then there comes the denial, right? That like, no, I'll definitely get back to that. I'll definitely finish it. But like I've had a book that I was rereading because I know it was one of my favorite in it like of a series that I knew had like the right tone for something I was trying to bring across in my TTRPG, and I was like, I better go brush up on that to like remember all the things that they did to bring across that feeling. And I spent about probably an hour reading and trying to get in inspiration, and then I set it down and I haven't picked it up since. It has been months, but it's still sitting there because I'm in denial. I'm like, no, I'm definitely gonna read it.
I actually picked this up not just because Dread Singles is in it, totally because Dread Singles is in it, but also because it sounded cool and proceeds went to charity. But I have been getting more into like flash fiction and flash fiction anthologies lately because it's short.
Yeah.
Very bite-sized. Also, writing flash fiction is very fun.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, that's kind of why I personally prefer, if I like a book, I know I like the book, I'll prefer to get it in audio form. And I know this because I like because the first book I can remember my parents reading to me was Harry Potter. And I was like, and then I tried listening. I tried reading it myself, and I was like, and then I listened to Jim Dale reading Harry Potter, and I was like,
Yeah.
And it's just that I like being able to. I cannot focus on, like, I'll read and my I literally jump lines, and that just completely derails the whole thing. I also like to work on things, which I can't do. I like working on things with my hands. I cannot do that while reading. So that, with also Jim Dale just being an excellent person at reading and stuff, that's kind of the reason why I think I do like that.
I totally agree. Like I knit. This is not a humble brag. This is just a piece of information.
Awesome.
I don't expect any accolades from that. But I like to listen to something while I'm doing that. And it just makes it easier. And I'll realize, like, I'll just blast through like an audiobook, and then I'll be like, oh great, because I was like doing something.
Scarf. Hell yeah.
Yeah, and then I have a scarf. It's great.
It's interesting because, like, your attention has different like parts, right? You have the visuospatial part of your attention, which is like, manipulating things and looking at things and processing images. And so, like, doing stuff like knitting where you're like, that occupies your hands, or you're watching it, or like for me, drawing art, that doesn't occupy the part of you that processes language. And so they're different. Like, the reason that I know this is one of my friends just was a psych major in college, and I read her senior paper because it was really cool. But like, reading about the different parts of the attention, and why like doodling in lectures helped people retain information more, because like they're occupying both of the parts of their attention while they're doing it, which helps build bridges between like the pieces of it. I don't know. It's very cool.
Wow. That makes my buddy Hector Navarro listens to soundtracks when he reads comics. And so I tried that with books, and it was just such a weird different experience, because I just put on like a soundtrack, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm there. I'm looking at the words, but I'm also there.
Yeah. Well, I found the same thing. The same was true like when I was in college and I was studying, right? Like there were different things, and this is in large measure I attribute this to like ADHD and stuff, but like I needed, like, if I was alone in a quiet room, I could do absolutely nothing. Like, absolutely nothing. Because my brain would try to like fill in the silence and like the nothing happening, and my attention was just split. And as opposed to, like, if I was in a place where I was not directly involved in activity, but there was activity happening around me, then my brain had places to go. Like, all those errant strands of attention, like, they had something to focus on. And then instead of being split between absolutely every conceivable thing, it was only split between a few things, and I could actually focus. And so, like, one of those things that I often did was, like you said, soundtracks, but it had to be the same piece on repeat.
Yep.
And that's how I did like 90% of all of my reading in college. It was that way.
I have a particular set of like lo-fi tracks that I will loop while I'm doing editing work.
Yes.
And it enables me to focus and also not be like distracted, because like Lucas and I talked about this the other day, but like focusing on not being distracted is different than focusing on your task.
Yeah.
And those are two entirely different uses of like mental resources. And so like having that to just like
Yeah, like because like when we were talking about this, John, like we were in a meeting doing something very simple that we've done like dozens of times before, but like for whatever reason that day I was just extremely distractible, and so most of my energy, mental energy, went to like keeping myself on task, which is not the same thing as focusing on the task at hand.
Hmm.
And by the end of it, we got through it and we finished, but it took way longer, and I was just burnt out. I was like my brain was done. Like, yeah, I was fully checked out at the end of that. But yeah.
There was one year a bunch of friends and I, is that grammatically correct?
I think so.
Yes, because I was doing the thing as well. We were doing NaNoWriMo together. Much easier way to say that. I should have just said that instead. uh, we were doing NaNoWriMo together, and we were all having a hard time. And I forget who it was, but someone suggested playing the song "Sugar Rush," the credit music of Wreck-It Ralph, the first one,
Oh wow.
on repeat. So
Huh.
we did like 2-hour writing sprints where we all did that together, and it just like we pumped out pages.
Wow.
And it would just be like it's on again, and it was just like this like sugary like breakfast cereal song like
Mhm.
pumping through our
Like-
heads, and we were just in the zone. It made our lives so much easier.
Yeah.
I was that's wild because I was like crunch writing for a deadline, a submission deadline I wanted to get to like a couple of, I think like a month ago. And there was one particular song that like felt very in the mood for the piece that I was writing, and I just had that going in the background the whole time that I was writing. Like,
Yeah. Oh man.
There's also that happens too with exercising too. You know, you have a certain song. It might not be a particularly good song, or you might not even like it, but there's something about that song, maybe in the beat, that just
Mhm.
kind of gets you going.
Yeah.
I don't know. I almost said pumped up, but I don't.
For me, the one that does that, I actually have one of those. My workout song that I play on repeat is "Take Back the Night" by Justin Timberlake.
Oh,
That one is
heck yeah.
great for that.
I used to play the Dark Knight Rises
Yes,
soundtrack
me
to work
too.
out.
Mhm.
But then people,
Mhm.
and this was like in a small like apartment gym, and every so often people would come in, and I would be in full Batman mode where I'm just like, I'm in the bat. If I don't
Yep.
like do pedal or whatever I need to do, like if I don't lift this weight, like Gotham's in trouble. And then someone walks in, and I'll just have to snap out of it and be like, hey, I wasn't pretending to be Bruce Wayne.
That's,
You want to put on? What do you want to put on? You put on something. Go ahead.
That's good. That's good.
oh, that's excellent. Caitlin said, as far as this, like the attention thing, said, "Oh yeah, that's why I feel so strongly about music and TTRPGs." That's so true.
Mhm.
Whenever I'm playing a TTRPG, especially online, especially like remotely, if there's not music playing, I find it way harder to concentrate. I check out so much more easily, and actually, that's interesting because I never really noticed that tendency in myself until you said that, Caitlin. So thank you. That's food for thought.
Because also like when you're at a table too, there's a tactile experience. So you're listening to stuff, you're
Mhm.
thinking, you're speaking, and then you're also, or I should say, you're communicating, and then you're also like moving minis or like rolling dice. It's just like it's your brain is that's so true. And if you take any of those elements out, like when you're playing
Yeah.
online, it is very fun. But when you're at a table, you're like, oh, that's right.
Like with our friends from college, John and I, like when we started playing a D&D game together online, because like all of us are sort of scattered around the country, and we were playing for a while just over voice, and that worked for a while, but then I took over for a bit, GMing that game, and I was like, why is this so draining? And so we like met. We actually had like a meeting where we like all came together and talked about like what we could be doing and like how we can like improve the experience. And somebody, I don't remember who it was, I think it might have been John actually, suggested using webcams, and we started doing that, and suddenly it was a whole world of difference because you could see each other and you could like tell when somebody was going to like to speak and all that kind of stuff. You get the visual cues of that, and you aren't like stopping like, oh sorry, and then you have to wait and to see who's gonna talk, which adds up, right? And so after a while, like
VoIP chicken, like.
yeah, exactly. And so yeah, no, it's absolutely true. That's that you definitely lose that, like when if you take away most of the elements of gaming at the table, and you just have like the audio part of it, then it becomes so much more difficult to engage.
Mhm. Yeah.
I saw a couple questions actually earlier. Caitlin said, most obscure and/or amusing piece of media or character you've ever based a TTRPG character off of.
I I saw that question and I thought of an answer for it because
Go for it.
not a TTRPG character, like not a character that I've played, but as a GM, um, definitely took inspiration from several characters from Barb and JC Hendy's Dampier series, which is which is one that you introduced me to, I think, Lucas.
Yeah.
And I don't know how obscure that is, but you are the only person I have talked to that has ever known what it was. So I'm going to choose to believe that it's kind of like not very well known, but
I don't think I've ever met anybody else who has read, like, know anybody personally who has read them. So
clearly those two are successful. It's like a husband and wife duo that just like crank out these like super cool like vampiric legend books with this interesting, like the world is so interesting. They're great books. I have a lot of them yet to read. I've read maybe a dozen of them, but I took inspiration from that for not just like a few of the NPCs in my home game, but also for some of like the plot elements of the Dreamwell Chronicles that I ran here on Rule of Lore. So yeah, I think that's that's probably the most obscure reference that I have made for making TTRPG like NPCs and characters and stuff.
Yeah.
There might be something more obscure, but off the top of my head, that's what I can think of.
Yeah, see, that's interesting because like I don't tend to play as often as I run, so I feel like now I'm like going through my library of like NPCs or whatever that I've like
yeah. On Thank You for Questing, we had a lot because we were just cranking them out, and I like at one point like Maris Crane from Frasier was like the launching pad of like literally like a crane ghost, and we were like, yeah, it's Maris from we finally get to see what she looks like. She's a crane. And so I think for me, there was one night I jumped on Saving Throw and for a D&D night, and then they were like, we have this barbarian character, and I was just like, okay, great, I have the sheet, like let me just make some choices. And I what I pulled from, I don't know if it came out in the performance, but what I pulled from was Andrea from Reboot. If anyone, shout out to Reboot real quick.
Yes.
Because I was like, they're like, yeah, you're just gonna like throw, like you got like a Triton, you can like, you know, throw it at people. And I was like, all right, let me think. Aquaman, a little bit straightforward there. Also, I don't know if it's a Triton because it's 7 points. And then I was like, oh my gosh, you know who does have a Triton? And so I just like funneled that through. And then in that, it was like, I was still playing some internet choices without those being the specifics, but it was just very funny where I was like, what am I doing? Like, it's just like a very outsider character of like, I just got spit out of a computer program. So
I really, really appreciate the Reboot reference. Because that almost never flies with anybody. Like nobody remembers Reboot.
That is so true. That is very true.
Yeah. Nobody remembers that show. And me, like, and I even remember it, and I didn't even have like television when I was a kid. Like we had like fucking like the bunny ears, right? Like the bunny ears antennas, right? So like it was rare. It was rare when you could get a like a station, like a channel that would actually like have Reboot on it. And then have that function while Reboot happened to be on, you know?
I remember, like, I just looked it up on my other screen. I'm like, I know those visuals. I don't think I ever watched the show, but I saw it and I was like, yes, I know exactly when I remember seeing this. I know this existed.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I'm
trying to think of like other obscure characters.
Yeah, I know I've done it. That's the worst part is I know I have done it. It's just like right now it's like when you ask somebody what their favorite music is and they forget they've ever heard music, you know? It's like that.
Well, like, you know, I was just gonna say, how many times have you quoted that Matt Colville bit where he's like, a GM is only as good as the obscurity of the media which he references.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. Oh, God.
we did a Poseidon Adventure month for Thank You for Questing. So I'll say I think because it wasn't like, yeah, it was the adventure, but it was like characters were based off of the characters from the movie Poseidon Adventure. And as I'm saying the words out loud, I'm like, that's actually gonna be my answer, is just playing through the film Poseidon Adventure.
Yeah. Oh man. I'm so upset because I know I've done it. And it's just, Freeman, do you have any that you can think of?
Not really, except for no.
God,
I mean, I know there are some though.
I think it was
Has to
for,
be.
I don't remember what it was for, but I know that I did. This is really the only one I can think of, is that there is a character that I, like an NPC, and like I said, I do not remember when it was or what game it was for, but I based the character on Rudy from the show Misfits.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I based the character on Rudy.
That's great.
With just like this very like I don't want to do anything, like the kind of cowardly, like I'm not gonna get involved, and like just kind of, yeah, a little on the sleazy side, just, yeah. But that's the only one that I can think of right off the top of my head as far as obscure, because like most of my references aren't that obscure. I obscure the reference, but the reference itself isn't that obscure.
I feel in my gut that, like, especially when you're GMing, like voices are probably coming from just like this huge well in the back of your head. Because there'll be some times where I'll be watching like old forgotten Christmas cartoons that I saw when I was like 4 years old or something, and just like old like Rankin Bass stuff, and then like someone will make like a voice and I'll be like, oh, okay, so the flame guy is the one. Okay, that's who that waiter was at that tavern. Got it.
Yep. Yeah, I feel like the reason I don't remember as well is because when I've done it, it's rarely premeditated. It usually just happens in the moment.
Yeah.
And often for like a throwaway NPC.
Yeah.
Because I just need something quick to fill in that gap, that moment. I just need it right then and there.
We did base one of our ongoing NPCs. I'm just going because Thank You for Questing way to make up like 20 characters per week. One of our ongoing NPCs, Clever Foodies, was the merchant you encounter in Resident Evil 4, who really does kind of take you out of the game sometimes.
Yeah, a little
You're just
bit.
like, oh my gosh, I just saw something so horrific. It was so terrifying. He's like, how's it going? And you're like, not good. I'll be honest.
Be honest, buddy, it's real
better,
rough
really.
right now. Like,
I had to
just
run
saw
through a
some
village.
just saw a bunch of like Village of Innocent People, like weird black tendrils just sprouted out of their chests, and now like they were all trying to murder me, and I ran out of handgun ammo, and like I was just like crunching down herbs of this color and herbs of that color. I need like a 4-panel comic now of the Resident Evil protagonist to just like getting that question, and then just like the shopkeeper just like oh, it's okay, buddy. Like
That's so fun. Just Leon having a full breakdown. And he's just like, okay, yeah. Are you buying or are you selling? I mean, take the time. Don't want to rush you.
I can see you've been going through some stuff, but like, so take your time. But
I don't usually put this on the buy list, but I got some coffee in back, man. Like you.
This is all me. This is all, take some time off in his damp cave.
a nap
what,
and a
30%.
Can I offer you a nap and a juice box in these trying times?
What's the juice?
Some orange slices, no! Leon. Here you go.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I've seen a couple people answer. Rose says, I base an absurd number of characters on SWTOR. I may have a problem. That's not a problem. That's excellent. I think I've done that too. And Caitlin said, my contribution as Maggie Doyle from the Nazi Puncher game was loosely inspired by the mom from Rizzolian Isles.
Oh my gosh.
I love that. That's
so, because Caitlin's talking about Rizzolian Isles right before, so it's very funny. It's very, very funny.
Yep. That's very good. I love that. Let's see. Nico says, I feel like apart from visuals, I just so rarely directly base things off existing media. Maybe pick like one or two super specific things, but usually try to put my own personal spin on it. Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at too. Like, and by the time I've come to an end point with that character, and I realize and the character is realized in the game, like they are almost unrecognizable as the source. So I think that might be part of my difficulty here with that question.
I remember like that one of the panels I went to at Gen Con 2019 was that one like with Shauna Germain, and somebody I think asked about like running out of ideas or something like that. And it just like that notion of just like taking a couple of things and finding the places where they intersect, and then like that was something that she talked about. I remember just being like, latch onto a few details that are interesting to you and then ask your own questions in that space and explore that new space. And I think that's kind of like basically what that is like, I think this part of this character is interesting and this part of this thing is interesting, and now what if I just marry these things, and that creates something new and interesting, especially because you're the one telling the story, and like everything that's up here is different to literally everyone else. So like, of course, common experience, and like that's a fundamental aspect of storytelling, but like the way that you take in the world and then reframe things is fundamentally unique because of your experiences. So the way that you take two things and put them together is going to be different than somebody else who takes two things.
Right. I have a very fun and big question to ask off of that, but really quick, Lucas, is that a copper cup you have?
It is, yeah. Well, I think it's probably copper plated, but yeah, it is.
Are we copper cup buddies?
Oh my gosh! Wait! I think I
Are
have.
we all?
I think I have. Oh no, it's not the same, but I have two different ones.
I feel so left out with my just regular Contigo water.
That's not what I cheated. I'm not actually drinking out of this right now. It's just nearby.
It's just within arm's reach. I think that counts. Like, how many people have a copper cup within arm's reach, Freeman?
It's still antimicrobial, whether it's got anything in or not.
That's great.
I love that. That's good. Yeah, see, I got this a while back because we just it was when I was really getting into D&D, and I remember watching Critical Role, and they all had like these cool like mugs and stuff like that. I was like, I want one. And my friend actually got me this for Christmas, or for my birthday actually, because the store that he works at actually has these, got them in, and he was like, oh, hey. And so he got me one, and so perfect. Yeah. I drink everything out of this. Actually, when I say everything, I mean exclusively water, but I use it every single day. So
the majority of the beverages what I have, which is hydration.
It is, yeah. I was actually talking to my friend about this yesterday. Like, I almost exclusively drink water. It's just every once in a while, maybe I will get like a soda, but rarely.
Yeah,
so,
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah,
it's water and herbal tea.
Oh, you know what? That's actually and then coffee. Okay, my answer's changing.
The thing is, I don't count coffee because that's less of like I drink this because I need something to drink. I drink coffee specifically because I want coffee. So
you're right.
So I don't count that.
You're not drinking it in place of drinking water.
Right.
Yeah.
Anytime somebody tells me that they don't drink water, I'm just like, no.
It's like, why would you do that?
I would do that to your body.
not to call out anyone specifically, but like she probably is not watching. My mom does that. My mom's like, oh, it's so hard for me to drink water. I'm like, no, it's the easiest thing. It's a basic human need. You need to do this.
Koala, we are also calling you out. Welcome back. Drink water.
Koala, drink water.
Hydrate.
You are a growing young person, and you need water. You need to be hydrated and healthy.
No.
The question I wanted to throw out to you three, and also to chat, was: have you ever, and I guess yes or no is not a super interesting answer. So if so, what NPC did you just throw out as a joke that then became like an emotional keystone of a story? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
You answer anything but Yuri the bear.
Oh my god, that's right. Okay, so that's right. I forgot about Yuri. So Yuri is a halfling bard that he wasn't a throwaway, but he quickly became a meme. So like Yuri was a halfling that came about entirely because I just I took inspiration actually from Sam Riegel's character in the screw job one shot that they did, I'll be the rat. So Yuri spoke with this big deep Russian accent, and he basically like just this little halfling with who just had that Russian accent, and he was just chaotic as all heck, and he had a magic item that was a coin that if asked a question, would like a yes or no question, would answer correctly, but only 50% of the time. And so when like
Yep.
he was leaving, he was departing, and like he had said this, it's correct about 50% of the time, and one of the players like turned to the sorcerer in the group, was like, should you cast detect magic on that? And he's like, the sorcerer was like, no, some things are just better left a mystery.
That was a good moment.
Yeah. So
Oh,
Yuri. Yep.
this is one that I know that I have done, and now I'm blanking. I have to think about it.
It's just so funny when like Rick recently in Power Play introduced a librarian just to be like, here's some info, and we all fell in love with him instantly. And I think Rick made the fatal flaw of being like, and if I were to cast Pete, I think it would be Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Oh no.
And we were like, okay, Rick, if you're stunt casting your NPCs, we're talking to Pete. Pete, we're inviting Pete over. We got to talk to Pete about like Hamilton. I want to know about In the Heights. No, this isn't Lynn. No, we know that, but we just want to know Pete's opinions on these things because we know it's not Lynn. But at the same time, I really like to hang out with Pete a little bit. I mean, Pete got a MacArthur Genius Grant, like so.
Oh, that's so
we just
good.
fell in love instantly. So Pete's gonna be. I will do everything in my power to have Pete around as much as possible.
I remembered one. In the very first streamed campaign that we ran on this channel, Dungeons and Dorm Rooms. It was a D&D campaign that like took place at an arcane university. And there was I remember when we were writing for this, John, Caitlin, and I, we were writing for that. We like came up with a bunch of like random encounters that they might have on campus, and one of the random encounters was a student whose familiar got stuck up a tree.
Okay.
And
I love that so much.
Yeah, because of course he's a student, he's just learning, and he doesn't remember that you can just recall your familiar. You can just right. So that he introduced himself as Rip. And this character ended up becoming like just the character that was probably the most important to the entirety of the storyline. Yep. But it was entirely a throwaway character. Like that was just a random encounter, and I just happened to roll it on my chart that day. So that was see, Nico remembers that. Nico was there. Yeah, I completely forgot about that. But that is the epitome of the character that you're talking about, which is just, it was a random encounter. It was just a single thing, and then I was like, wait, there's an interesting character here. There's a story here, and so yeah.
It's so funny. Like, I mean, we were just talking right before this about like Mabim Bam, and it was just like, I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll say only so much. But just like Davenport, just coming in so hot, and you're just like, oh, that was such a bit. And now that was someone who like treats, and now the balance of the universe rests in these hands. So it's just amazing how that just happens organically.
Yeah. And Freeman, you haven't GM'd at all, but like, do you have have you experienced that from the player's side? Like those characters?
It's interesting because I know there are probably more that I don't even know about because I don't know if those characters were intended or not. But Rip is definitely is one, but I'm always curious which ones, like which characters were not supposed to, were intended to be a main character.
Right.
What characters were just kind of like a throwaway and then ended up being actually like either a very important, like the center character, or just like a really close friend or sidekick that was very important to your story. I always wonder that too.
The other side of this, right, is like the characters that the party, for whatever reason, just inexplicably just decides to hate. Right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
John was running a game for our college friends, and there was this random guard.
This poor
This
guy.
poor guy, like this random guard that was like he was private security for this warehouse or whatever, and we snuck in easily. Like we like didn't nobody saw us coming. Like we snuck in, we met with the owner of the warehouse, like snuck in and whatever, made
Who
sort
was
of
a vampire,
who was a
which-
vampire, yeah.
Yeah.
But we ended up making like kind of a uneasy partnership with the vampire, and then they're like, "Oh, you're free to go," or whatever. And so we decided, what the hell? We'll just leave through the front gate. We'll leave through the front gate this time. And we left through the front gate, and we just started just giving the guards so much shit for like, oh, you should really up your security or whatever. But then it turned into a thing. So every time we came back to the warehouse, the party just antagonized this guard like constantly. It was
Well, like, and they were there. It got to a point like where people started looking to see if it like where he if they didn't come in a gate where he was at, they would look to see if he was around. And then there was like this, if something happened in town and some of the like private security for these vampires died, but like he lived, and eventually, like by the end of that arc, you guys were like kind of chummy with this guy.
it was one of those we were frenemies by the end of it. We were
Yeah. He had a name. That's what I was looking for in my notes. I named him eventually.
we never learned his name until much later. So
Yeah. I think that's the closest like recent example that I can remember that's even kind of close to that, where like a joke NPC actually like resulted in some emotional investment.
it just happened to be emotional investment of antagonism. Like
The hapless guard became like somebody that they were like more like shoulder punch. Yeah, you like.
yeah.
If you ever have the joy of playing with Kelly Nugent, she makes very strong emotional decisions on the basis of like on NPCs from her character's point of view. And so every so often, if someone just rubs her character the wrong way a little bit, it doesn't matter who it is. Like someone can walk up and be like, what can I get you? Kelly will be like, I don't like this guy. And then we'll just stick with it for the entire campaign. And we'll just be like, he's giving you like a magical item. It's like, I don't want it. Sorry, I just don't want it. It's not grounded in any like logical thing you can work through as a GM. Kelly's just like, we just got off on the wrong foot. Sometimes it just happens, and it's just so fun to play.
I love that level of commitment to just like like. I want to go because chat had some great answers to that question, but let's see. Let me scroll up. Koala said, "Not in my own campaign, but the Galir phenomenon sticks out in my head." Yeah, Galir from Dimension 20 Fantasy High. Very true. I think that's a perfect example. Let's see. And yep, Gemini brought up Pete the librarian, so yes, of course. And yep. And and Caitlin brought that up too, actually.
We love Pete.
Yeah, just great. Geek Out said, "My players fell in love with an adolescent beholder with acne and braces." I love that. That's so funny. Oh my gosh. Now I want to hear that
so
story.
That's really good. That's really good.
Let's see. Koala says, "My friends had a campaign where the dwarven shopkeep ended up one of the PC's lovers and like an emotional crux of the story." Wow. That's so... It always seems to be like bartenders and shopkeepers. Like it always seems to be, because like those are the most often throwaway characters, right? Most often that's like the one that the GM just like has to come up with on the spot, because the players are like, oh, I'm gonna go buy some potions or like get some information from the tavern keeper, right? So that does make sense. Like that's all. It always seems to be those characters.
There was a speaking of tavern keepers, right before we left off in our home game, the one that you guys met.
Oh yeah.
The one that you guys met that was like that one was like maybe 60 or 70% improvised. Like they were kind of just a bog standard like tavern keep, and then I was like, no, this is a way cooler idea that I've just had right now.
Yep. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I think those are like the big ones that stand out in my mind, frankly. Like those. Um, I wanted to sort of pivot a little bit and talk a little bit about like because we've as tends to happen on this show, we've been focusing quite a lot on TTRPG stuff. Um, Not unexpected at all, but I am a little curious about to like talk about the kinds of things that we connect with in like TV and movies, or the kinds of like shows or movies that we connect with. So, like I know we were talking about, like I think it was Gemini that brought up like characters, like character driven or like good characters as one element of a show or movie that would bring you in or that you connect with. But I want to kind of talk a little bit about like what are some other like either elements or like shows or movies. Anybody have any like examples? Chat, feel free to weigh in on this also, as always.
For me, I really like, I mean, I like a lot of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
because I have a degree in film, so I had to watch a lot of movies to get that. But I think for me, I really enjoy when something feels very just like safe and chill, even if the stakes are very high. And especially when something, it doesn't I mean, it's great if it is explicitly queer, but like if something is kind of just like even queer coded, you're just like, I get to hang out. Like at no point do they say in Captain Marvel necessarily that they were like in love, but you kind of really get that. Like I would appreciate if Marvel just
Yeah.
said it.
Yeah.
But like
Mhm.
I love watching that movie because it's just like, yeah, just two friends raising a kid together. And I'm just like, yeah, I want to kick it with that. Like, yeah, just two friends doing karaoke together. I'll watch this movie 100 times. This is great. I'm definitely, I don't think I'm necessarily reading a lot into the text of this movie. So it's just like fun to put that on. Whereas like some other comfort stuff like Friends and everything, I didn't grow up with Friends per se, but it's just like, it feels a little bit different where I feel like if I was hanging out with those characters, I would like crack a joke and they'd be like, yeah, cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Huh.
That's true. Cause it's funny. I didn't really connect in my mind that I do this too. But like I definitely when I'm watching something like generally like something kind of like lighthearted and whatever, I I definitely do like self insert, right? Like I'm like,
Yes.
what would I be like either as an actor in this show or as a character on that show?
Yes.
Like, and I definitely do that, and I realize now hearing you talk about that I definitely do that more than I'm aware of in the moment. I like it just kind of happens. So that's really interesting. That's definitely something I'm gonna have to sit on for a while and think about. Yeah. Huh. Yeah. Also, I just really appreciate chat is just shouting they were wives, so
Oh my God,
Yes.
they were.
Yes.
absolutely.
We Carol, we held whatever. This is a separate rant. Sorry,
Yeah,
this is
no,
gonna be a
go for
whole
it.
thing. Whole box of her clothes. I won't get into it, but it's just like we kept all of your stuff. Okay, it's fine. It's fine. I'll
Yeah,
do a
yeah.
3-hour video on YouTube.
There you go.
I have a lot of feelings on this matter.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. Freeman or John, do you guys have specific stuff?
Well, whatever it is, it obviously it has to kind of stimulate my brain a little bit.
Mhm.
There has to be stakes involved.
Sure.
Sometimes, depending on like my mood, I'll want to probably, kind of feel a little more happy,
Mhm.
or I want to learn something. It's been a while, so I haven't actually watched documentaries, but I really love documentaries.
Mhm.
The last documentary I watched was about a family of Wolverines in Finland that came back, but that was a long time ago, and it was really cool. I was like, oh, well, I really want to go to Finland now. I want to go back to my home. I'm not from there directly, but I mean, like back to where my ancestors were. So, I mean, going back to the topic though, the question, something that's like,
Rambling on Ramblemancy, that's not allowed.
wait, is this Ramblemancy? You guys didn't tell me. Okay. So somewhat something that stimulates my brain.
Mm-hmm.
That is such a good answer. That is so true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Like I know one of the things for me, like I like to go, like I'm endlessly fascinated by the, like, not just like with when it comes to TV and movies, not just the actual production, like the product, but also like the behind the scenes stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
like in terms of the
I eat that up.
production and
Oh, I love
like
behind the scenes.
and
Yeah.
and even to some degree like on the business side of it too. Like I find that stuff fascinating, like that kind of stuff really. So like often what I'll find, Freeman, to go along with what you're saying, is if I am watching something, I like to compare what I'm watching with my understanding of like what happened to bring this about,
Hmm.
and like that's the kind of stuff that I really appreciate.
Yeah.
I have watched and read so much media about people who make the media that I like. Like, I like one of the manga that I read, picked up recently was Monthly Girls Nazuki-kun, which is entirely about people who draw shoujo manga, or like, just like I love reading media that is about creators, because it's, obviously you take it with a grain of salt because it's been exaggerated for storytelling purposes, but like it's such a fun and like very relatable like experience reading characters who like super go through the same thing. And so like it's, yeah, I think that's one of my favorite like weird little subgenres or like
Hmm.
sets of media.
That
Yeah.
is so true. I like, off of that, I think I like it doesn't have to necessarily be old. I think that most of the examples coming to my mind are just like a little bit older by a few decades, but just like B horror, like monster movie, sci-fi stuff, really low budget, where they're just in a park somewhere and they're just doing this. And I think it's because with a lot of like, you're watching Iron Man or something like that, and it feels like that takes place in its own universe and it's just there. And you're like, that's a separate, place. Like I can't go there necessarily, but I know it's not part of my world. So I get to go to their world for a little bit and then the movie ends. But when you're watching someone in like a rubber suit run around and knock over some cardboard stuff and you can see like a parking lot in the background, you're like,
Yeah.
someone did that. Like a bunch of adults got into a rubber like dinosaur suit and started knocking things over, and probably some other people were on their way to lunch and turned and saw it.
Yeah.
So this really happened. And so there's
Yeah.
something that like it's just like that is my world. Like these people are in my world. And that's so like it's just like that sense of like the creator is present is like a very
Mhm.
nice thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go because I saw some really great answers in chat.
Mm.
I saw Koala says direction and music and how that plays into the storytelling. Edgar Wright tickles the part of my brain that likes films, movies like Scott Pilgrim and Baby Driver were fucking awesome for that. Yeah.
I have, if you look very carefully, well, my camera's probably not good enough, but on my shelf back over here, I've got the World's End cards just lined
Ooh,
up.
nice. That's so cool. Let's see. I saw also um, a bunch of people saying that they would show up to your TED Talk on Maria and Carol.
It's coming. I'm going city by city with this thing.
Excellent. I saw Nico says, I feel like it's way easier for me to list what I don't like in media, given that my tastes are quite frankly way too varied to and constantly shifting. That's fair. That's fair.
That's great.
And let's see. I also saw.
Caitlin made a comment definitely
yeah.
that I identify with.
Yeah.
Like
Go ahead.
Caitlin just said, like, oh, hold on, chat is scrolling. Personally, I sometimes get disconnected from things that weigh too heavily or like are too cruel. Things with lots of hope and love, no matter what the genre, I will love a lot. And like, I definitely feel like I identify with that, because the thing that I've been sitting on here is like, I love shit that is like kind of macabre but also soft. Which is why Jordan Shively and his weird subset of eldritch monstrosities that like are kind of caring, is my favorite shit. Like things that like magic settings that are just like strange and a little bit alien and a little bit like eerie and creepy, but also like the core of the story is like about hope and love and friendship and relationships. That is so like primally my shit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, I'm with Caitlin in that like I don't like it when stories wallow in it too much.
This is my problem with Game of Thrones. where
Oh yeah, we're all kind of hedging around what we want to say. Yeah.
Listen.
I'm not going to mention the YA dystopian fiction trend of the 2010s, but I'm definitely going to call out the YA dystopian fiction trend of the 2010s.
I interned, I won't say where because that's probably not professional,
Fair,
but
yeah.
at a place where we were producing a lot of or we were trying to produce a lot of YA content, and it was specifically YA dystopia. And I just remember sitting there and reading through so many of these books and so many of these scripts. And I really dig YA. So I was just like, but these, like, this is a fun, it's a tough time in your life, but it's also a very fun time in your life.
Yeah.
When you stop taking yourself so seriously. And it's nice if like older people can let you know that, even if you don't internalize it fully at the time.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to make, and I'd forgotten about this until just now, until you said that, John. I really wanted to make like a dystopia story where, like, you know, post-apocalyptic kids in a high school, but they love it. And they're just like, this is great.
They're just super into it.
Yeah.
It's the near future. Yeah, we've broken off into cliques, and that's kind of a thing. And every so often, like, these robot guards will come in, like, on the drone ships. We have it though. We put lasers in the dodgeballs. It's the future. Like, anything is possible.
I'd read that graphic novel. Like,
Yeah, that's incredible. I see, and that kind of goes also along with something that I saw Nico say, which is I like media that's set out to do a thing and pulls no punches to do that thing. And
Yes.
yeah, I think that is a perfect example of media that would do that. Like, you set out to do a specific thing, and that is subvert the trope and also send the message that, like, this should be a fun time in your life.
Yes.
Right? And then just goes hard into that. Like, I think that's great. Like, I love that idea.
It's when you find joy in stuff. It's like when stuff is like, did you know that everything's terrible? And you're like, yeah, I lived through
Yes.
2020. Yes. But like, even in Jurassic Park, where it's like we're being hunted down by dinosaurs, at one point they're just like, these things are great. Can I feed one? And you're like, oh yeah, you're right. This park is awesome. Like, yeah, 100%.
like, okay, I know, like must go faster horror movie like 6 hours ago, but like also cute dinosaur.
Yeah.
I also, okay, so I was thinking about this earlier because I liked what and agreed with what Gemini said earlier about characters, but I want to get more specific because for me, one of the things I like is when characters grow and change. That matters to me. Like, which is one of the reasons why those like static sitcoms that are all like self-contained sort of things, I can't really do those, right? Because at the end of the episode there has been change, but that's not change that's going to carry over into other episodes, and you know that. And it always feels very cheap to me whenever that happens. I just feel like I've been cheated of something because essentially you just watched 22 minutes of growth and change that basically you're in the next episode you're told didn't matter.
Yep.
Right? Because they're right back to exactly how they are. They're going to do those same things over again. And I understand that that is part of like what the way that genre works. I do get that. But that's also the reason that genre is just sort of not for me. That's why I like shows like Schitt's Creek and Parks and Rec. Like those are shows where people are growing and changing over time, and that change carries through the episodes. And I think that to me is what matters. Is like if your characters grow and that growth and change matters and can be sort of is consistent throughout. That's what I find fascinating.
I totally agree with that. I really, really agree with that.
Yeah. But then the other thought that I had was also, you know how like there's a certain satisfaction that you can find in watching somebody and seeing something done well, right? Like sometimes it's fun to just sort of watch something like, you know, people who are completely fresh to something do a totally fresh take, you know, do something completely new. But there is still a sense of satisfaction in watching something done just very well. And for me, this is a specific film, but I think Hot Fuzz is probably my favorite movie of all time because that is such a tight movie. Like there is no waste in that movie. Everything in that movie has a purpose. Like everything is either keyed to a theme of the movie or like sets up something that happens later or is intended to show like a certain character for who they are and what they do and whatever. And it is such a tight movie. Like it's so funny, but it goes so much beyond just being a comedy film because it is just so there's no waste in that movie whatsoever, and it's incredible, and it's so satisfying coming out the end of that movie and just being like, that was great. So yeah, that I think is those are kind of my answers to that.
For a YouTube video a long time ago, back in the YouTube days for me, we recreated the co-host of Two Broke Geeks and myself, Mia, and I think with our friend Alyssa, recreated the opening sequence of like it was for Alyssa's Filmmaker channel, and it was just like the whole like, you know, him walking up to the camera and like all the whips, and I was like, let's just do it shot for shot, like let's just do like our own version shot for shot. And by the end of that whole sequence, I had probably lost 10 pounds of stress because I was just like, this is so hard. This is like so specific. It was like 60 unique shots or something.
Oh my god.
Just for that opening bit. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this movie. Like
yeah, it really, that kind of thing tends to give you a whole different appreciation for things. Like doing something yourself that you have seen other people, that you've only seen other people doing, gives you a whole different appreciation for how much went into it.
I tried to make a croissant the other day. Now I hold croissant like little dough babies, where I'm just like, I don't know how you happened, but whoever made you is very good.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Puff pastry, man. Don't do it at home. any baked good that requires repeated layering of butter into it, let somebody else do.
That's one that I'll tackle that next year.
Yeah.
I remember back at the beginning of quarantine, there was the like, oh no, everyone's off work phase, and then there was like, I'm going to learn to bake bread phase. I wonder how
that's why all the yeast was there's no yeast
Why is all
anywhere.
the yeast gone?
I went to the store and there's like, I go to the aisle where you normally find baking shit, and it's just barren. Like
it's that kind of stuff. I don't know if that will get like captured in history, where it was like, what was it like to live during the pandemic? It was very scary. It's very, you know, terrifying. All the RPG books sold out. There was no yeast. Like, it's just these weird little like odd things where like I was mildly inconvenienced. I wanted to make pecan pie. All the you know, like one ingredient from that was gone. So it was just like, I got to get inventive. It was just very odd.
I went to the store to get some King Arthur bread flour so I could make, you know, homemade cast iron pizza like I'd done a zillion times before, and the entire aisle was empty because everyone decided to learn to make sourdough.
Yep.
Like again, like there's just the fucking 2-panel comic of turning down the bread aisle, and then like haggard me with a beanie and like chat hugs mask, and then just nothing on the shelves.
Yep.
Cobwebs.
It was just such an odd experience. It was just something that I was like, I don't know how to capture this. I don't know how to ever explain to someone where it was like, yeah, maybe I'll try bread and I'll get some proofing baskets. And the website being like, it'll take about 2 months for us to get you some. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Like
my mom went to order a bike and in like the spring, and didn't get it until midsummer because everybody was ordering bikes. Like,
Wow.
Wild.
Rosita gets at one that hits very close to home, unfortunately, which is the skin hunger.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, I was scrolling back up just now while you guys were talking, and I saw a couple of the answers that I missed. Which Heart of Handprints said, I like world building that entices me to imagine more stories within it. Ooh, that's cool.
great answer.
Especially fantasy sci-fi where the rules are defined enough to build upon, but still has space to adapt my own ideas. Oh, such a good answer. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of now something specific that because I know I've experienced this recently, but
I'll throw out real quick.
Yeah.
As a kid, Animorphs.
ooh,
It was
yeah.
it was like alien technology. You can turn into animals if you like pet them and think about it, and then you can't stay for more than 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's all I got to know.
Yeah.
And my friends and I just ran around and we were just like, all right, great. So we can probably turn into a dog, probably a cat. Raccoon, real touchy. I don't know if we'll be able to get that one in.
Yeah. Oh man. I know there was one recently. That's a thing with like world building that like that's a skill that I'm not sure that I've been able to copy like from media that I like, right? The skill of being able to create those like solid rules, right? For a setting. That's like I know I and John and Caitlin will tell you this because when we were doing world building for Infinite Horizon, that was some of the stuff that I wanted to do because it's an entirely homebrew setting. And one of the things that I remember our earlier conversations was like, okay, but how does this world work? Like, what are the rules? Like, how does space travel work? What are some like not we don't have to write out like a whole constitution or anything like that, but like what are the laws, right? Like, and those are things that I struggle with when it comes to world building. I struggle with that kind of stuff. I'm very good at the broad strokes ideas, like the cool concepts, but when it comes to like what are the gears of this world, I am basically useless there.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why it's always so impressive to me to see it done well.
Stuff like Space Boy, actually, which is a webtoon comic that I read, I feel like does that very well, like with its and it's not like sci-fi that you bounce off. Like I could see people bouncing off of stuff like The Expanse, because that might be like less, I think, the series and more, definitely more on the book series side of things. But like even like the Expanse TV series could maybe be like a little bit too hard of sci-fi for some people.
Yeah.
But I think Space Boy is a series that does that. Like it has very clear and interesting rules for how things work, and that sets up a very compelling story. But it's not like super hard sci-fi. But I think The Expanse is an example of that done pretty well, right? There are very clear rules about how that universe works in space travel, and like the core of the story's conflict is organized around the cultural and like physiological differences of people who have lived their whole lives in space and people who have lived their whole lives with 1G and a blue sky above them.
Yeah. Mr. Fizzer says that describes Numenera pretty well. See, and that's Numenera is a setting that I really wish that I was like more familiar with. I mean, I understand that I can very easily do that if I wanted to, but it's just it's a setting that's just so fascinating to me, but it's also so alien to me, like having like fantasy but like science fantasy basically, right? That's a thing that like I haven't consumed enough media in that to like have developed any kind of like working understanding of it. So when I approach something like Numenera, I'm like, I don't know what to make of any of this, and so then none of it gets in, you know, like so it's I don't know, but it's fascinating to me. Yeah, Nico, please do if you've got links for that, please do toss them in the Discord because I would happily watch that later. Was it you said Hello Future Me's hard/soft magic systems video? Okay, yeah, if you got links, please do put them in the Discord because I would love to watch that. I was going to ask a question, but it is fully not in my brain anymore. So yeah, I mean other things. John and Freeman, did you guys get a chance to like answer that question about? I know. Oh, Freeman, you said about like things that have to sort of stimulate your brain, but
Yeah.
I think I kind of answered, like I answered in the various times. I didn't like take my own time to, but I kind of answered in jumping in on other people's things, which is I think my answer was pretty much, I can't remember what one part of it was, but I know one part of it was I really enjoy macabre, but it's soft.
right. Yeah.
I did want to add something onto
Mhm.
mine actually. I really enjoy, like, if I've not watched a show for a while, I like to go back and watch the bloopers. I really love the bloopers, hands down. Like, and even if I don't like the show at all, I fucking love the bloopers.
It's funny because I agree. I'm glad you brought that up because for me, watching the bloopers is like you see them playing characters, but then you suddenly get to see them being just people.
Yep.
And I love that. Like you get to see the break and
Yep. Oh man,
The
all of
late
the
90s blooper culture is something that
Huh.
we just like every movie ended with like
Yes.
the blooper reel.
Mhm.
That was the post-credits shit.
Yep.
It
Like
was.
none
Oh,
of this
man.
like Nick Fury doing things like post-credit stuff.
Yeah,
None of
yeah,
this
yeah.
plot afterwards. Give me the bloopers. Like,
Every Jackie Chan film,
Yeah.
bloopers are just.
Oh my gosh. And they go from being so funny to being like, I fell off a jet ski, and you're like, oh, that looks
Yep,
really painful.
Ooh,
And
which
he does
one
it
was
like 10 more
that?
times. And you're like, oh no.
it's
Oh
a
god.
weird intersection of like blooper reel, but also like fan fiction and also like the media that I was talking about earlier, where it's media about people who make media. But Caitlin like kind of got me a little bit into it, like social media augmented universe like fix, where people will like basically take the characters, Stephen King's It, by the way,
Mhm.
and shop text conversations and
Uh-huh.
stuff. And it was super fun. And like the person who was doing the one that I read, I don't know if Caitlin's still in chat, but like the one that I've read the most of, like was written by somebody who is like a in the film industry. And so it was really cool to read something written by somebody who comes from there, writing about these characters who were actors. And like the story was, obviously like about these characters, but like, it's centered around their work lives. And so it was a really cool like insight into the weird silly shit that happens on set while you're producing things too. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's a really wild way to experience that. Like it's such a weird like
Yeah.
overlap. The intersectionality is incredible on that one. But
I'm
yeah,
I'm
anyway.
thinking about, because Koala brought up I remember Barbie credits where it was like animated bloopers. That shit changed my childhood. And that's
Oh yeah.
that's fascinating to me, because that, even when I was a kid, that kind of stuff would always like crack me up, because it's not like it's animated, so they did it. They had to have like in part done it on purpose. Like I know some of it was probably like the voice actor, like made a goof or something like that, and then they just animated around the goof,
Yeah.
right? But some of them like were definitely like, I don't know if you've ever seen the bloopers for Attack of the Clones. But there's one where it's legitimately just like there's like one of those like big round creatures that Anakin rides and gets thrown off of, right?
Mhm.
It's just running through a field, and you just see like giant Yoda catching lightning and then just throwing it back, and then the creature just blows up. And like it's truly strange and wild.
Mhm.
But there's even a sequence of like Yoda, who is fully CGI in that film, dancing with like clone trooper backup dancers.
Yep.
It's just so bizarre. Like, yeah.
Somebody just animated that like as a cooldown, like
Mhm.
as a joke, and
Yeah, maybe it was just like a screen test or something like that, where they were just like
Yeah.
testing the tech or something like that. And
They'll do, it's so funny, man. Blooper, there's so many takeaways from any time like a bunch of nerds get together and chat, but I think that like bringing back blooper culture is going to be the big one for tonight, because I remember like in Shrek, if I remember correctly, there were like, it's what seemed to be very scripted bloopers where it's like, Eddie Murphy, do like as if Donkey made a mistake. But then also in the bonus features, they were showing times that the animation went off, and they like did like a texture test, and then like Donkey just like became this giant spiky beast and still was in this scene, and they were just like, this is not good. That stuff I remember as a kid, I was like, this is so funny, like makes no sense.
the one that cracked me up, the one that's like that cracked me up was like, I got the Lord of the Rings extended edition, right? And they have like those 2 extra discs of just bonus features.
Yep.
Which I watched just the shit out of them when I was a kid. I loved that stuff. But there was one where they were showing, because they developed a lot of new technology to like do like the CGI for the battlefields and like that sort of stuff. And they were showing one of those where like in a test of the tech, they were watching how like it was all going really well, but then one person was like, wait, what's happening over here? And they noticed that a whole bunch of the soldiers, like the CGI soldiers, were like running off the battlefield, like running away from the battle. And, and that to me was just the funniest thing when I was a kid. Like, Like,
yeah, you're right.
yeah,
It's a very intimidating battle.
it's a big deal. Helm's Deep. Like, I get it, man. Like,
Yeah.
it's terrifying, but they're just like running off the battlefield. Like, yeah, that's that that kind of like thing could really not exist without like CGI and CGI technology and that kind of thing, right? Like, there's no other instance in film where you could get something like that happening.
Yeah.
Which
I
Yeah.
mean, like the closest you get is just like the local high school cross country team is out practicing.
yeah, and they just like run through the background of the shot.
A bunch of high school kids, like coaches behind for whatever reason today, and they're like, "Caution tape? Nah, man, we all just jump over it because we're in the middle of a workout." Like, they just run onto set. Like,
The grind never stops. We gotta
Yeah,
go.
listen, we got state
how
coming
else
up.
do you
We
think
got-
I got these legs? Like,
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
That actually reminds me of Freeman. You'll know immediately what I'm talking about because you were there when we were on that. There was a trip that we went on in high school. For it was like we were sort of doing like following the Columbia River, like kind of in part doing like Lewis and Clark sort of stuff, but also not entirely sticking to that. And at the end of it, we were in somewhere on the coast in Oregon, and
Yeah, really close to
they were
seaside.
it was like a fort. I don't remember where it was specifically, but they were filming the road there.
Oh.
And like the road with Viggo Mortensen and everything.
Mhm.
And I remember seeing like we walked down to the beach and we could see like there's this in the movie there's this big like boat wreck, and we could see that down the beach. Like we were looking down, I
Wow.
could see that, and you could see where they had like their like security was in their golf cart looking things, right? Like just sort of hanging out, waiting, just sort of watching and whatever. And I remember we like just a small group of us went to the beach away from like the rest of the group, and we decided that we were going to tell everybody because we learned coming in that they were filming this. We decided to tell everybody on the way back. We decided to tell the people who hadn't come with us that we had met Viggo Mortensen. And but one person did not want to go along with it. Like he was one guy, he just did not want to go along with it. So we decided that we were going to make up a story that he had tried to sneak in and like got away from the group and got pushed back by security. And so thereby missed meeting Viggo Mortensen because he had tried to
Right.
get in his own way. And he was like, no, absolutely not. He's like, I will not stand by this at all. But we got back, we told the story, and everybody just like corroborated everybody else's story, and they did not believe him at all.
Yes.
It was terrible, but like I felt kind of bad afterwards because everybody believed us, and they're like, wow, this is really pretty pathetic that you're making up these lies just because you're mad you didn't get to be. I felt kind of bad about. Yeah.
It's like an early version of Among Us is what you all did. Like
We actually did end up playing Mafia that night around the campfire, so you know.
sorry, I'm just flashing back to that time that I ruthlessly bullied a poor rando when we were playing Among Us with that charity group.
Yeah. Oh,
There were
I
9
felt-
of us on a voice call, and the 10th person was like a random person,
Oh,
and I was
no.
imposter. And so I walked into the room with like a person we were on call with, and then like the rando, and just murdered the person I was on call with in front of them, and then self-reported, and then pinned it on them because they weren't in voice chat.
yeah. I felt kind of bad about it, but he also then turned out to be a really, really bad sport about it too, because we accused him, and he actually was imposter at one point and left the call when he was correctly left the game when he was correctly identified. So
Oh.
I felt a little less bad about it then, but
It's like, oh, okay, well that they had it coming.
yeah.
yeah, I'm like, yeah. Anyway. But yeah, no, like we had that whole thing going, and like one of my classmates was even like while we were telling the story to everybody, he like embellished, and he was like, yeah, Lucas, I was honestly so impressed. He's like, I was intimidated, but I was so impressed that you just went up and shook his hand, and like this is whole story that we concocted around this whole yeah.
I love that so much.
So, you know.
we didn't lie about any of this, but I was in Chicago a long time ago because I've got family in Chicago, and we were just in the city for the day and we were just hanging out, and there's a bunch of helicopters everywhere. And I had my little video camera that I was recording stuff with. And then I was like, this is a lot of helicopters, but also like, I don't live in Chicago, so I don't know how many helicopters you usually have. And then we're walking back to the car, and this tank, there's like a group of people, and this tank comes out of nowhere and just rushes at us and spins around, and fire bursts out the back. And we're just like, what's happening? What's happening? You know, like our minds are running the gamut of like, is alien invasion? Like, you know, like what is, you know, what's occurring? And then this camera car goes by, and this guy turns to us in this really just great, like Chicago, I wouldn't even say accent, just personality. And he goes, "Oh, that's Batman. That's Batman." We're like, what? And it was the Batman Begins Tumblr that they hadn't even released, so we didn't know anything about. But he just turned, he's like, "Oh, that's Batman. That's Batman." And just walked away and kept looking back at us and goes, "Yeah, that's Batman." And it's just burned in my brain of this man. So I don't know how he knew, but this man confidently walking away. And I was like, I want to be him one day. Like, and I don't mean like grow up to be him. I just mean like occasionally pop into that choice of just like confidently like turning to some kids and being like, oh yeah.
It's Batman.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, thank you, I suppose, but I need more information, sir.
Yeah. He didn't get anything else. He didn't. Yeah. There was no like additional info. It was just that.
I mean, you can't just walk away now. You just. That's incredible. I love that.
Needs more explanation.
It's like, you know, you're in a comic book store and like some kids are browsing and Tank just goes by and say, "Hey, that's Batman," and then they turn back and you're just gone.
Yeah.
Just Homer Simpson into a hedge, you know, just
Yeah, and they check
Batman
all
out.
of the adjacent like the stacks, and like you're not there. They talk to the owner of the comic book shop and like, "No, you guys are the only people in here." Like, just
that man burned down 14 years ago.
That
he
man
spontaneously
burnt down
combusted in the street and just, you know.
But he said he'd be back. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yes. Never mind. I was trying to make a joke. I was trying to make a joke with like the Dark Knight Returns, but then it just didn't quite.
it's got the same energy as like when you would go into a professor's office in college and then ask them a question and be like, "Actually, you know, I've got this great book on the and they just like reach up and pull like 3 books off of the shelves in their office and hand them to you, and I'm like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to be that
You just
person.
want, yeah,
Right.
the one who just happens to have a relevant reference like within arm's reach,
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
a copper cup.
Yeah.
You know,
I just want to be that person who just happens to have a copper cup within arm's reach when it becomes relevant, you know.
I'm manifesting your copper.
Be the change, you know?
This is the closest thing. It's good.
or a fucking pine cone.
It doesn't matter how many times you pull that thing out, Freeman. I will never not be surprised by it. Never. Like,
That's a really good pine cone too.
It's very good.
Yeah.
It's I love it. What random
That's a
things do you
nice
guys have in your desks?
I've got a
Mjolnir.
ooh, that's a good one.
What
case of
else?
ink cartridges.
I actually
for-
just recently cleaned everything around here, so
Got
that's a
I-
lie. I
I'm
just
a-
moved things further away from where I am.
Things are a bit of a mess right now for over here.
a doll like in the corner, but it's too big.
I mean, I have
got
a handful
little.
of dice, like some dice in
Perfect.
this little dice
Oh
bag,
yeah,
you know?
definitely got the dice at hand. I got a little cactus
Mm.
here, I guess.
Oh, nice.
Exhale.
21 unique pens and pencils.
That's a good amount.
That is a good amount.
Oh no, wait, sorry, I missed 122. My Cintiq stylus.
That counts.
Oh gosh. Well, unfortunately, somehow, because time is fake, we are actually at the end of our time
what?
for tonight. It's
I
yeah,
haven't even sounded the live
It did not feel like that at all.
not at all.
Like when you said that, I was like, all right, we got to move on. This has been like a good 30 minutes of talking. And then I looked at the clock and I was like, wait a second.
Yeah, no, it is.
Ramblemancy has 3 stages for me, and it is, oh wow, it's only been 5 minutes. Oh wow, it's only been 15 minutes. Oh, it's been 2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very true. And then there's the bit at the end where we can't seem to figure out how to end, so we just do this for the
Yeah, we just do a bit for a while, and then
Yeah.
eventually the bit transitions into somebody throwing somebody else into the bus to do end of stream announcements,
Yeah.
and then like we just go from there.
Yeah, no, like we always say that it's not truly Ramblemancy until we've gone 10 minutes over our regular time. Right? Like,
Yeah, that's a thing. I love it too, because like originally Ramblemancy was only an hour, and then
Yeah.
we sat down. We're like, we can't do it. We're
Where we
warmed
made
up at an hour.
just the absolutely nonsensical decision to like make Ramblemancy only an hour, and that was, I truly don't know how we did that. Like,
Not well.
no, not at all. Like, I remember at one
It
point,
just, yeah.
like I remember, I think it might have even been Nico who suggested it, who was like, maybe you guys should make it longer. Like, we would hang around, and then like, you know what? Maybe we will. And so,
Because like right at the end, we're like, oh, we have so much more to say about all this.
yeah, that's the thing. Like, that was the thing, is we always felt that's what actually happened, is that around 40 minutes, almost on the dot every single time, is when we like really got into the topic.
Yep.
Like around 40 minutes, and then we talked, had really good conversation for 20 minutes, and then it was time to stop. So we're like, you know what? Let's just make it half an hour longer. So yeah.
I've heard an explanation of why sessions go so long in RPGs from a friend who was like, look, it's going to take you about 15 to 30 minutes for everyone to have coffee, and then within game it's going to take them about 15 to 30 minutes for the characters to have coffee and wake up. So by that time it's about an hour into gameplay. And so
Yeah,
that's very true. Oh man. Well, everyone, thanks for hanging out with us tonight, and Omar, thank you so much for coming and chatting with us.
Yeah.
thank you for having me.
Yeah.
This was such a blast.
Yeah, it was truly an awesome time having you. Before we go, Freeman, do you have some final words for the audience?
I do. We are rule of lore. So, and I have to say this. I have to say this.
Sure. Yes.
Copper mugs. Raise your copper mugs. This is just cool. Well, if you love what you see and you love us, the ways to support the channel, you can check out our Patreon. Our Patreon has what we call our tabletop tool chest. It's our every other week little tidbit things that we put out on the Patreon, little story bits that you can use to insert in your game, or if you're writing into a story. This week's is, I'll get it right this time, Cyberpunk Adventure Hooks and Quests. Well, we also have end of month media, which we get all our media that we've consumed, if we have consumed any of that month, and we share it with y'all.
Oh, I've been writing down my list for this month, so we're
No, yeah, me too. Me
Yeah.
too. I've not been so good at it in the past, but it's like it's hard to consume some media. But also world builders out there, you guys rock. Working on stuff in the world of Infinite Horizon, which we'll be back with Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We also have a merch store, and we have a brand new sweater up, and we have with season 2 art, and we have these awesome stickers and the cup that I've been kind of sporting all night.
Ooh, I actually do. I was checking to see if I had it on Ramblemancy, and I do. I can put the sweatshirt up on the screen. It's
Oh yeah,
still
show
here.
off the sweater.
Yeah, with wonderful season 2 art by our very own Caitlin Bruder. So yeah, you can catch that in the merch store right now.
And a good way to support some of our short-term goals, like helping us get cool art and cool music, you can check out our coffee. That'd be super cool. It's awesome. And also, last but not least, join the Discord. It's wild in there. I love it.
If you've got
check out the Discord.
If you've got stuff that you wanted to continue adding to this conversation or any other, Discord's a great place to go. There's a Ramblemancy channel where you can keep the conversation going. Yeah.
It's a good way
Also,
to
if
stay up to date with what's happening and what's coming up to.
Also, if you want to be greeted every morning by a chorus of good morning and good tones by everybody in general chat, it is the most wholesome experience that I have ever had on Discord is checking
I don't know
checking
who
the
started
server.
that, but I'm so glad they did because
I think it was Geek Outs.
Was
I
it?
think Geek
Okay.
Outs started doing it in the mornings
believe so,
on
yeah.
the Brigade Discord server and on our Discord server, and then everybody else has just started doing it, and now it's kind of like one of my morning rituals
Yeah.
is to get up and like
It really is.
wake up,
check my
drink
social
water,
media.
check the Discord, say good morning.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Geek Outs.
um, Koala is asking, why do we blame Lucas for Glee? Okay, it's just to explain this.
Oh yeah.
It's because I went on a journey kick the other day, and that inspired Rose to get back into Glee. So like, it's my fault,
Oh.
and I apologize.
Join the Discord.
Join the Discord. Yeah. That is the shorthand of it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So Omar, if you would like to tell everybody where they can find you.
Sure. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Omar Najam, and I'm on Power Play, which is on Sundays on Q times at 5 o'clock Pacific is when we start. So I get to play a ghost, which is my dream.
Excellent.
And Caitlin, who's in chat, also is on that as just the most hardworking person I've ever met. Is how I'll pitch Caitlin's character.
Yeah.
Puts up with quite a lot. There's superpowers involved, but I think Caitlin's main superpower, I think Benny's main superpower is just putting in that time.
Awesome.
Not unlike real Caitlin.
That's very true.
Yep. Yeah. Pulling from what she knows, definitely.
Yeah. All right, Caitlin is still here, in fact. So.
Yeah. I just so everyone knows, I just adore Caitlin so much. We're just so lucky to have Caitlin in our lives.
In this house, we love Caitlin.
Yes.
It's absolutely true.
This is love Caitlin hour here on Rule of Lore. She's
And
absolutely
the best part is
incredible.
that she's not in the call, so she can't protest about this. So
Yeah, that's why I was like, I'll take this
Yeah.
opportunity to sing the praises.
yeah. Caitlin says, "Hey now."
There's no escape.
There is no escape, truly.
my.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight. We will see you hopefully on Tuesday for In Too Deep. But if not, we'll see you the next time you decide to come roll with us. Good night and good zone, everyone.